They say that you are your brother's keeper. For the longest time, it seemed like my older brother, Bo, was just that. The All American Badass is what all of his buddies used to call him. And who could blame them? Every bit of 6'4", 270 pounds, won the state title in wrestling and led the football team to its first ever undefeated season and its first state title in 15 years. To top it off, he was on the honor roll and trained in MMA when he wasn't occupied with football or wrestling. He was something else. Being the younger sibling of a star athlete with a reputation of being able to whoop some serious ass certainly had its advantages. Everyone minds their P's and Q's and no one gives you any hassle. But above everything else, he was a tremendous role model. He always pushed me to be the very best version of myself and always search for what was best for myself. That all changed one fateful summer night. I can still remember the fateful knock at the door, my mother screaming, my father speechless, the solemn look of the police officer's face, the feeling of my heart sinking down into the pit of my stomach. My brother was gone, killed in a car accident by a drunk driver on the way back home from a friend's place. Less than a month before we were going to go back to school and before his senior year. To say that the community was devastated was an understatement. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the area. We had lost something that was once in a lifetime occurrence and that we were never going to get it back. For me, the change began almost immediately. People began coming out of the woodwork to harass me. Like my brother, I was about average size for my age and had a modest athletic ability. I was more the intellectual, reserved type. Not that my brother wasn't as well, but our talents seemed to concentrate in opposite directions. Things began to go into a much more hostile direction. Once he was gone, every $2 hard ass was wanting a little piece of the home team. They would find out that they were in for a very rude awakening. Normally I could fight off the majority of would-be threats and would be problems one-on-one, be no problems one-on-one, but struggle against multiple attackers. Dan and his little cronies Phil and Blake were my longtime nemesis since middle school. Though it had stayed tame due to my brother's lingering presence, things had began to explode and turn physical once I was no longer protected. Snide remarks and jokes had turned into full-on assaults, almost on a weekly or even daily basis, depending on how voracious the little shits were feeling. One time, Phil even smacked Beth on the ass and blamed it on me. She knew better and returned the favor to him, but only to his face. That Beth was something else. Long, tan legs, gorgeous black hair and brown eyes. She was, wow, amazing. But the attacks from the trio continued to intensify, nonetheless. "Get back here, queer," they would shout. Hell, some of the bystanders would even join in on the action. One time, 3 other guys joined in during an altercation after school. I landed a few good shots, but I got pounded on the ground until the altercation was broken up. Sometimes I would just sit to myself and think, what would Bo do in this situation? I wish that he was still around. One day, I was walking back home from school with my buddy Mike. We were talking about the usual things that young teenage guys talk about. Music, sports, women, aspirations, popular culture, where we wanted to go to college, the whole nine. "So, are you going to ask Beth out to homecoming? Said Mike cheekily. "What?" I laughed. "You heard me. I've seen you staring at her in biology." can't take your eyes off her. I laughed again. Psh, I don't blame you. That's a prime piece of... Bro, I laughed. Hey, she is. I shook my head, laughing. And I think she might have a little thing for you as well. I see her returning your glances with that sly little she-devil smile of hers. I mean, yes, I do have a thing for her, I said, chuckling. Get it, man, shouted Mike. Homecoming is not too far away. Are you gonna ask her? I laughed, shaking my head. Ah, I knew it. I'm thinking about it. Do it, man. No regrets. Hey, what about Diego? Are you still into her? Oh, that goddess can get it any time she wants it, Mike replied. Well, am I gonna ask her? Fuck yeah, man. What kind of question is that? Gonna get me some. We both laughed. I think you've got the Latin fever, Mike. And nobody damn sure better not cure me of it either. No, she is hot, I'm not gonna lie. Mike grinned deviously. Oh, I know. And she seems to have a way about her that a lot of girls just don't have. Her sexiness and feminine energy just seems to radiate from her. I can't really put my finger on it. She's just so unique and exotic. Yes, a lot of Latin women are like that, especially if they're from South America. It's exactly what attracts me to her so much. She's a damn knockout, replied Mike. Gonna have you some fun? Whole night. We both laughed. So are you gonna try out for wrestling? Asked Mike. I don't know, maybe. Just then, someone grabbed me from behind and began choking me. Wrestling team, eh? Let's see you get out of this one. Get the fuck. I could hear Mike struggling with another dude in the background. I elbowed the ribs repeatedly. The grip loosened, and I was able to get out. It was Blake. Phil was having his way with Mike, with a chokehold of his own until I ran over towards him. He released the hold, shoving Mike into me, slowing my advance. Blake came with a punch of his own to the side of my head. I landed on my side. Both guys turned their attention back to Mike. A few moments until I got my bearings back and saw that Phil and Mike had Mike in a headlock, with Blake taunting him. Then, a sharp pain from my midsection. My wind had been knocked out of me. I collapsed down onto my knees, tears coming from my eyes. I look up, and there was Dan, staring down, smiling at me. Unlike Phil and Blake, he wasn't so much about the verbal assaults and the standard bullying and teasing, as much as he was about straight-up violence, especially towards me. He prided himself with being one of the best street fighters in the school, if not the entire district. I had never seen it, but it was rumored that Bo gave him a very nice little ass-whooping one time after a football game. Bo never talked about it, and Dan seemed rather meek from the time that the event had allegedly taken place until the time Bo died. He walked over to Mike, also giving him a nice punch to the midsection. Mike fell to the ground. Dan then reached into his pants pockets, pulling out 6 pairs of brass knuckles. Oh, fuck, they're really trying to take us out this time, I thought. Then, for no apparent reason, Phil began to have difficulty breathing. Then he began convulsing onto the ground, foam coming out of his mouth, his throat contracting as if he was being strangled by some unseen force. Phil, what the fuck? Yelled Blake. The fuck's wrong with you, Phil? Cut that shit out, growled Dan. Then both Dan and Blake began to struggle for air as well. All three of them. All three shaking convulse. Until suddenly the chaos ends. The fuck was that? Demanded Dan. I don't know, let's get the hell out of here, said Blake. All three got up and began to walk away. They all stopped right next to a sizable meadow, right next to the sidewalk. All three of them were frozen in place for several seconds. Phil began to shake. Dan shook his head and dumbfounded, and motioned for the other two to come on. All three sprinted off abruptly. Once they were out of sight, a cold breeze started to come through. Out of nowhere. Stiff, unsettling. Mike and I stared at each other, puzzled. What the fuck? I mouthed to him without vocalizing. The breeze continued, and a tall, black figure stepped out of the meadow and onto the sidewalk. The thing was in all black and an all-black football uniform, with no markings. His dark charcoal skin, barely even distinguishable from the uniform, had no visible facial features, just a dark shadow behind the face mask, with two red eyes glaring at Mike and I. It just stood there, staring us down. I stuttered. It nodded, then walked back into the meadow, disappearing. Mike and I looked at each other and took off running. We didn't speak until we made it back to my place. God, Tony, what the hell was that? Said Mike. Fuck if I know. Jesus, that thing was something out of a damn horror movie. Never seen anything like that before. It's almost like that thing was, well, protecting us, said Mike. Didn't it? I replied. Weird. We took a few minutes to gather ourselves and decided not to say anything about our little encounter. We were convinced that no one would believe us anyway, so we chilled for a bit and Mike went off about his way. That night I had a long deliberation of whether if I was going to ask Beth out or not. I've had a thing for her for quite a while, and I think that she might have a thing for me as well. My phone begins to ring, and it's Beth. What's up, Tony? Nothing much. Beth, how are you? Are you free tonight? Absolutely. What's up? Meet me at the theater downtown. Time? In about a half an hour. Done deal. I hang up, tell my parents where I'm going, off we go. It takes about 20 minutes, but I arrive at the theater. I'm waiting for several minutes until I hear someone struggling in the back alleyway behind the theater. I scream. I run towards the commotion. To my shock, it's Phil, being strangled by his smoky charcoal black hand, blood pouring out of his mouth. He convulses, struggles, gargles for air. Nothing. He drops to his death onto the concrete. The dark figure fixes his evil gaze onto me, the pupilless red eyes glowing at me intently. He begins to move into my direction. What the fuck are you? It pauses. An angel to some, a demon to others, in a calm but thunderous voice. I take off running. Fuck that, I thought. A strong gust of wind runs through the area, and lightning begins to strike wildly. An electrical storm. Then, sudden blackness. Only its red eyes are before me. I'm being sucked down into its mouth, ingested. I resist. I scream. Nothing. I wake up with a scream, covered in sweat. Jesus, I whisper. I go down to get a bottle of water and go back to sleep. In the morning, I wake up to the sound of someone calling my phone. It's Mike. Did you hear? Hear what? Turn on the news. I turned it on. A shocking development today for the local community, as Philip Kincaid was found dead in his bed this morning. The police are waiting to announce the cause of death after an autopsy has been performed, but it is believed by his family that Kincaid died of an apparent strangling or asphyxiation. Oh my god, holy shit, what the fuck is this? Bro, what the fuck is going on? I was speechless. You don't suppose that it was... I really don't know. Here, I need to talk to you about something. Let's meet up. I met up with Mike and told him all of the gory details of what had happened the night before. Jesus. Now we're gonna have to start carrying around garlic and crucifixes and spraying our houses with holy water, Mike exclaimed. I shook my head. What do you think that thing is? Don't know. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be interested in going after me. Only those that bother me. I know that's still a sore subject for you, but you don't think that this might be... Well, you know. I sat and marinated on the thought. I really don't know. I mean, Bo wasn't really the type to do something like this in real life. But then again, there's no guideline for how a returned soul back from the grave is going to behave, especially if a loved one is threatened. The whole thing is just crazy. I mean, why is this happening just now? Why not beforehand? It all seems to be a little too convenient to not be your brother, or something that's carrying it out for him. Sort of like a spirit of karma that eliminates bad people or something. But then again, why is it just now starting? I shake my head. Crazy. Being protected by something from the other side. Jesus, I muttered. Mike and I spoke for a little longer, and then he left to go take care of some things at home. I just happened to be walking around town and ran into Beth. Both of us were wandering around aimlessly with nothing to do, so we decided to spend the day together. We'd take a walk in one of the city parks and talk for hours. We were both free for the evening, so we decided to go see a movie. Nice little thriller about a vengeful spirit coming back from the grave to avenge his death. Oh, how fitting. Midway through, Beth outstretched her leg over mine. It wasn't awkward at all. Felt very comfortable and natural. We made eye contact and kissed. Afterwards, we embraced each other by the hand, and I began to walk her back home. We gazed back and forth at each other, smiling. Homecoming? I asked. She smiled. Of course, what kind of question is that? I smiled back, and we kissed again. Think fast, lovebirds. I get knocked on the side of my head, falling to the side. Beth screams, and lashes out, getting in several good shots, slowing Blake down until he's able to subdue her on the ground. I get up and slug him with a vicious right, knocking him to the ground. I continue the assault before stopping myself short. Blake whips out a knife and made a slash attempt toward me. You're gonna pay for what the fuck you did to Phil. What? You heard me. That nice little piece of ass is coming home with me tonight after I'm done gutting you like a fish. Our eyes lock. We begin to circle each other. He dives towards me. I dodge to the left, then to the right. I grab his arm and we struggle. He gives me a headbutt and I stumble backwards. Just as he prepares to lunge again, he stops in his tracks. The color leaves his face, and his mouth opens. He drops the knife and begins to shake. Beth screams as blood begins to emerge from his midsection. His stomach begins to open up, and I run over to Beth, covering her eyes as we both turn away. right before feeling the warm splatter of blood. We both shake. Beth is sobbing, hot tears. I look over to see Blake's dead body laying flat on the concrete, disemboweled, blood everywhere. No, muttered Beth. I shake my head. God, Tony, what the hell just happened? Let's get out of here, I muttered. You're welcome, a stern voice thundered. Beth and I turn around once again. The red eyes appear in the dark alleyway. The figure begins to emerge from the dark alleyway. Blake's body catches fire and begins to burn. Beth and I take off running. We run and run and run until we make it back to her place. We relax on the couch on the front patio. She cries in my arms, a deep emotional release. Why? She mutters. I don't know, baby. I just don't know. I say softly. I hold her for a little while longer. We say a prayer, kiss, and she goes inside. I begin to walk back to my place. As soon as I get back, I can feel the sensation of being watched all around. Even with my parents up in the living room, I still felt uneasy. I went up to my room and laid down. The whole night I could swear I could see the red blaze of his red eyes coming from time to time. Eventually I relaxed and faded away. There was a buzz around the town after that happened. Whispers of an escaped killer still at large in the area. Police were on a manhunt. Everyone was a little more careful with where they went and what was around them. About a month went by and it was time for the homecoming dance. The night began smoothly. Everyone was enjoying themselves and having a great time. Mike and Diego were rocking each other's world on the dance floor. Beth and I were having our fun as well. Beth was rocking this amazing white and gold dress that made her look like an exotic queen from some bygone era, yet had the sleekness and modern sex appeal that could drive any man wild. Diego was sporting a fiery red dress that seemed to mirror her passionate, exotic, and free personality. All of us were doing some serious moving. Hell, Diego even offered me to dance halfway through, and I gladly accepted. The night seemed to go on forever. I excused myself to use the bathroom. As I was finishing up, I was grabbed from behind, choked. I threw several hard elbows and punches to the ribs in the midsection, and a few more finally loosening. I ducked and added a few more shots to the ribs and one to the face for good measure. Dan slouched back against the wall and down onto the floor with a dazed, surprised look on his face. Martial arts training, I smiled. I added a right hook to the jaw to finish the job, and the bastard went out. I returned to my group with Diego and Beth staring at my knuckles. Had to take care of some business. Everything's good. We enjoyed the rest of our night, and when the festivities were over, we made our way to the parking lot. Just as we were starting to leave, I felt the long strap of a belt tightening around my neck, and a sharp point at my side right next to my ribs. I'm gonna bleed the fuck out of you, Dan roared. What the fuck are you doing, Dan? Stop this, screamed Mike. Beth began to make a move, but backed down. Dan, you don't want to be doing this. For your sake, please release me and put down the knife. Shut the fuck up. Dan, listen to me. For your sake, stop this. I heard a sharp snap, a break, almost like a gunshot, followed by the loosening of the belt and the knife leaving my side. Dan screamed and bellowed in agony, dropping to the pavement. His right leg had been broken, the bone just barely coming off the pant leg. Then two more breaks, nearly simultaneously. Dan screamed wildly. Tears starting to come out of his face, his eyes. His left leg and arm had been broken. Please, no. Make it stop, he whimpered. Please make it stop. His body began to shake as the pain began to intensify. Beth and Diego both had their hands over their mouths. Mike had just shook his head with a look of solemn sadness. A crowd had formed around the scene, and you could cut the tension and unease with a knife. Until one, final and last break. Dan shrieked in pain, nearly passing out. Jesus! Shrieked Diego. Enough! I roared. Dan cried and whimpered on the ground. Diego went down to put her hand on his head, whispering softly to him. Someone call an ambulance! She cried. Beth grabbed my hand, shaking and sobbing. I put my arm around her and she buried her face into my collarbone, sobbing. Mike joined Diego on the ground, embracing her by the hand. Dan's right arm had been broken very badly, nearly being torn out of the socket. I look over to the field, right behind the parking lot, to the blaze of the red eyes staring at me intently.